Welcome to Smack Media. My name is Chris Maliongovi. Thanks for being our viewers. Subscribe to our channel for those who have not subscribed. Like and share so that we can build a community that is engaging as we progress with the analysis of the things that are happening in the country and around the world. Now, my issue here for today is about the Nairobi Expressway. Um, Actually, there is an old travelers tell that when the colonialists came to Africa, one thing they did was to exchange our African land with this small items as a mirror, because most Africans had not seen themselves in a mirror. Most African politicians, most African leaders had not seen themselves in a mirror. So it was a culture shock for them to it was an element of bewilderment for them to see themselves in a mirror. And so with that, with a mirror, salt, a spoon of sugar, Africans managed to exchange their land to the colonizers. I might not blame our ancestors at that time, because from the way I'm looking at things, that is that most probably we have not learned anything as a generation of so-called free people from the mistakes of our ancestors. If Kenyans can fall for an expressway that is in all manner of explanation a fraud, then it means that we have not learned much or not have evolved much from the civilization of our ancestors. Um, One of the reasons why I have so many issues about this expressway is that its main agenda was to ease traffic congestion on the streets of Nairobi. And instead, what has happened is that very few vehicles are using the expressway up at the top. Most of the vehicles are still down here. So you wondered what was the reason why taxpayers' money was used to build an expressway that did not even serve its purpose. But it was claimed that you see, they claim that it was a PPP, that is public-private partnership. But even in that itself, you ask yourself, who are these? Because I know the public that is taxpayers' money. But who are these private? At the end of the day, you'll be surprised that there was nothing like that private at all. That is just taxpayers' money wired into people's individual pockets, and then they come in as private developers who are now in a partnership with the taxpayer to build a road. But now let's get into the crux of the entire issue: the costing of the road. In general terms, the construction of a tarmac road in Kenya ranges between 26 million shillings to 600 or 700 million shillings per kilometer. And all this is informed either by the nature of terrain, the 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 the, 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 the nature of the road itself, if it's an expressway or an international trunk road, and then and so on. So basically, those are some of the facts that can contribute to a road being extremely expensive or extremely, so it varies. The primary roads could, depending on where you're constructing them, could be much cheaper. When you give it a feasibility study and or a comparative analysis between the expressway, the thicker superhighway, and this expressway, you realize that with all the compensations and so on, the thicker superhighway, 50 kilometers of tarmac, was done at a cost of around 37 billion shillings. Now, that one breaks down to something there about 700 million, 600, depending on the exchange rates of the time, the dollar and so on, the fluctuations and stuff like that. But now here comes Expressway, Nairobi Expressway, 97 billion shillings. Break down that amount to per kilometer tarmacking. You realize that you used around 3 point something billion shillings to tarmac a kilometer of road in the Nairobi Expressway. And Kenyans are not asking very hard questions. Instead, they're taking photos of that fraud. The guys who did this are putting on shirts, hanging shirts, moving around. They looted taxpayers' money. It was a fraud. You cannot, under any explanation, you cannot construct a road in a third world country using 3 point something billion shillings per kilometer. That one is perhaps on the moon. Try that perhaps on Jupiter or any other extraterrestrial body out there. But here on Earth, that is what happens. That a regime looted a lot of our money in the name of creating an expressway. Now, let's say then the expressway should have costed that much. Who are these people they compensated? Because for the thickest expressway, we know that there were so many demolitions along the road. There are people who had actually built houses on the right on the right allocation of the road reserve, the road away from the road reserve, but because of the expansions and diversions and so on, people were moved, and that those needed to be compensated. Who are these people that were compensated? How much money was used during that compensation? Now, the reason was to create perhaps and even ease traffic congestion from the airport. You do not build an expressway on the other side unless there is something else you're going to do, unless you want to use that airport for any other thing. You do not need to build an expressway getting into the airport or diverting into the airport for ease of movement. You take the train inside the airport, and that one would have costed the taxpayer far less compared to the looting that we have seen here. But these are our politicians, and they'll always tell you how patriotic they are. They put on hanging shirts and they put on weight. They are now today fat like well-fed zebra in the African savannah. We can say this. Kenyans are going to begin asking very hard questions as to how much these projects cost, who are the contractors, how much money were they supposed to be paid in the first place. Without that, Kenya will not be the same again. We cannot continue feeding a few individuals as Kenyans continue to starve. When you use 97 billion, that one is an insult to Kenyans who every year, you year in year out, you hear people complaining of food shortage, that we need to import food and so on. 97 billion would have irrigated land up north. 97 billion would have created enough stadia for us to train our own footballers, train our own sports people, so that we can be able to celebrate our own sports people rather than spend too much time cheering foreign teams, European Champions League and stuff names that are very awkward. And yet those very Europeans don't watch our football. I'm saying this, 97 billion shillings would have been created a subsidy on the parents, so that they don't pay much for the children's education. 97 billion shillings would have created police housing around the country so that the police are well housed, the military is well housed. We're talking about all these people. And that is exactly what people should be discussing about. Talking about payment of medical staff and so on. Those are the issues that the people should be discussing, not building an expressway going nowhere at the expense of the taxpayer. We are coming We are coming with very hard questions. We will need answers. And if we don't get the answers, we shall create the answers for the good of this country. Thank you very much.